a sinus point, yeah, and a tonsil point. There's more of a local phenomenon tested in EAV type machines. And the next difference is the probe tip. The probe tip of the Prognos unit is on a spring. It has, when you compress it, it has always 20 grams of resistance, but it will only start measuring when you reach the full 20 gram. Okay, and then through having the same pressure always, you cannot change the reading by manipulating the pressure. While with any EAV type devices, the more you press, the higher the indicator goes up, the higher the needle goes up. That shows you basically also the conductivity of an acupuncture point that you're measuring. Okay, so by having a spring tip, you cannot change the pressure. In this way, this is a variable in testing that you're taking away. So when you're learning how to use an EAV type unit, you have to learn from somebody over weeks to just have the right pressure, and not only the right pressure, also the way, the speed of how the pressure increases, yeah, has to be always normed, has to be always the same. And in the beginning, this gives you a lot of problem to learn that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have usually any problems learning new things. Also, I'm mechanically not really handicapped or so, but it took me about 6 months to get repeated readings on the EAV device. And it takes about 6 minutes to learn the same thing with the Prognos unit. So there's another difference in how fast you can learn the technique. The third difference is that Prognos is, whenever you do one compression with the Prognos device, it's measuring 400 measurements. So in 1/5 of a second, you have 400 measurements. By having 400 measurements, you, let's say there's a minute air bubble between the tip of the device and the skin, which, like in the first part of the measurement, plays a role, but not in the second part. Yeah. By having so many measurements, it will level all kind of contact problems will be leveled out. Okay, you'll have basically almost the same result as if you glue an electrode right to the point. Okay, this is the reason for those 400 measurements. And also, whenever you test with Prognos and you compress, you don't really know when those 400 measurements will start and when they end. Okay, so this is again eliminating the source of influencing the testing. While on the EAV type testing, you have only one measurement, and that happens while you do it. Okay, so you put the probe on the point and you press, and you see the indicator going up. And you press more, and it's going up more. At a certain point, even if you press more, it will not go much up anymore. Okay, and then you call that the reading on an EAV type machine. Yeah? Let's say it ends up at 75. But because pressure has such a big influence, the idea came up that you're supposed to always get the same kind of reading in EAV. In the EAV tester's head, yeah, if you repeat that same test, you expect it to go exactly to 75 again. Okay, so you kind of have to make it to go to 75 again. And in Prognos, we find that this is not true, that the meridian or acupuncture point has a constant energy state. It is very fluctuating with some people, and with other people it's very constant. Okay, so with EAV, since you're not thinking in a way that it can fluctuate, you also cannot really let it happen that it shows you that it fluctuates. Okay, so you kind of make it always to the same point. Since you can manipulate it, you make it. Okay. Then with EAV type devices, you're using water on the point to eliminate the skin conductivity problems. Okay, because you have areas with dry skin, with moist skin, with thicker skin, thinner skin. So you put water in it, which at first sounds as if it makes a lot of sense. But when you when you test the point, there's different ways of putting water on. Yeah, especially after you have tested the point 1 or 2 or 3 times, and with EAV you apply much more pressure than the 20 gram. You apply more than 10 times the pressure. You have a little hole on the point that you're testing, okay, from the pressure. Everybody that was ever tested with EAV type devices knows that. So then when you put moisture on, like you dip your finger and you moisturize the point, you can have a real puddle, okay, so that when you put the probe on again, that the electrons do not only get sucked from the acupuncture point, but from all over the place, okay, which gives you then a much higher reading, okay, and if you don't put that much water on, you get a relatively lower reading. So you have another variable, which is the amount of water that you put on, which is eliminated in Prognos because we don't do that at all. So if you are in a climate where people are sweating, you will have higher readings, but since you do not mess with it, it will be constantly higher readings. And we don't interpret the absolute level of reading that much. We interpret more the changes towards stimuli. Did I leave something
with the
out?
EAV machine, they're always looking for 50 as a balance for every
Yes.
meridian.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that's not necessarily so, is it?
Yes. Fall came up with the 50. Okay. He just said that 50, which is, if you translate it into electrical terms, it's a 95 kilo ohm at about 1 volt of voltage and about 50 microamps of current. Okay, so there's an electronic definition of this 50 reading, and Fall said 50 is ideal. Okay, because he tested a Fisher from Portugal, and he had all 50 readings. So Fall said this is ideal. So everybody now that's testing medications will try to find a medication that puts the reading to 50, and will then call it an ideal medication or an ideal reading that you can get at that point. Okay, that is the best thing that you can reach. Okay, so with EAV typically you start with 2 high readings, trying to bring them down to 50. Except with very degenerative diseases, you can have low readings, and then you will try to bring them up to 50. And with EAV type testing, once you have a high reading, it's really difficult to bring it down to 50. So basically what you will observe when you're retested by an EAV type tester is that when they do testing at first to establish your baseline, they will press much harder. And then when they test certain medications, especially if it's the one that supposedly helps, the pressure will be much less.
Well, what I noticed with the EAV too is what they're trying to do is that they get this drop, and
Yes.
they try to get it to stop dropping and
Yes.
then be balanced at 50.
Exactly. So the thing with the indicator drop is probably has a physical phenomenon behind it. What we see with the Prognos type testing is if we do a baseline and somebody has a health problem, just from the stimulus of the testing, to measure the same meridian again after like 2 minutes, you will have a lower reading. And you could see that as an indicator drop. Okay, so the meridian in a compensated state, and that is the state that you test somebody in when you test it for the first time, shows off as being better than when it's stimulated or irritated with a little bit of electricity. Okay, so basically the first reading that you get with the Prognos is basically showing the state that somebody can reach under optimum conditions, especially if you don't test people right after meals or having had coffee or whatever. And then you will find out the weaknesses by doing a second or third neutral test without stimulation. Okay.
What is the optimum you're trying to achieve with this device? What is it?
There is no optimum for everybody. The optimum result would be coming closer to the ideal range that the Russians have established by measuring 1 million Russians. They have established a range of 950 Prognos units, which is between, let's say, 750 and 1,200 kilo ohms resistance at 0.4 microamp current. Okay, so if your readings come into that range, and we can show the range also can show more of the, we can go closer, let's say, to the range by changing just the reading. Instead of having 0 down in there, we have the lowest reading now down here of this person. So you can see if somebody is in the range or not. And basically, if somebody is in the range with all readings, you will have a relatively healthy state. But you can also have somebody being not around 950 prognosis units, but let's say around 920 prognosis units, and being all balanced and being completely healthy. Okay? And I think we will find out more about that in the future, because everybody that's doing prognosis testing has to send in their tests every like 3 months by email, and then the more healthy readings, the more normal readings will be picked out and will be compared by age group and sex, so that you can probably in the future have like 3 different or 4 different normal ranges for every sex, male or female, and also for every age group, so that you don't try to make a